Hello YouTube artist, I'm Kelly Hernig and welcome to In the Studio. Today we're going to be doing a spread inside of my sketchbook inspired by the book Nature's Palette. I did a whole video about this book and how it inspired me. Our subject matter is my favorite bird of all time, the American robin. I mean, what's not to love? You've got that bright orange breast, you've got those beautiful gray feathers, and that bright yellow beak. I love this bird. So grab a pencil and paper and let's get started. I wanted to show you the exercises that I'm doing inside of my Nature's Palette sketchbook. Now, I did a whole video about this book and the review of it, and then I featured this sketchbook so you could see what I'm doing inside. Today I want to share how I go about creating a spread, from the graphite to the lettering to the painting to picking a palette. It's just something that's simple, but it gives you some beautiful results in multimedia, which I am really loving at this moment. So let me explain what is on my table here. First, we've got the Nature's Palette book. This is by Patrick Beatty, B-A-T-Y, and this is the inspiration behind my pages. This is the sketchbook that I'm using. It's a handmade sketchbook with drawing paper in it. I believe it is Strathmore drawing paper inside, and we're going to create a spread in it today that kind of resembles my first spread here, the dark-eyed junco, only we're going to use my favorite bird, which is an American robin. In this video, I'm going to show you everything on how to achieve this yourself. I've got a couple supplies to make it easier on us. I've got just plain tracing paper here. I've got some white copy paper so I can show you nice and dark so you can see my lines. I've got a black wing pencil. It's my favorite pencil because it's nice and dark, so you'll see that as we go to drawing. I'm using the Faber-Castell 6-pit graphite matte pencils, and I'm using three main numbers in here. I'm using the 2B, the 8B, and the 12B. And I'm going to show you why I like these pencils so much, because it is matte graphite. There is no shine. I've got my favorite pencil sharpener. This will sharpen just about anything, and because you've got all of these sizes, and it doesn't eat up your pencil, which I absolutely love. I've got my 18 color studio palette. I've done videos on this before. I will have all of these products and videos linked for you in the description. And then I've got my new toy, the Light Energy Light Box, and I'm going to show you how simple this is to use. I've also got a reference photo of robins that I found on unsplash.com. You can also go to Google and look up robins, or just look out your backyard if you're in Northwest Indiana. So let's get started. The first thing that I want to show you is how I do my lettering. I get a lot of inquiries about my lettering, and I don't do anything special. I really don't. I go to my computer and I write whatever I want to write, and then I pick an interesting typeface or a font. And I try to find the size that I will like. When I was picking this one, I wanted it to really not go past the page here. So this was my margin. And I picked one of the birds that I knew had a really long name, and that's the size that I based it out of. That simple. Now, of course, if it's longer, I can do it here. I can put it on 2 lines. You can put it however you want, but this is a nice size for me. I like to see what the item is whenever I'm doing it. And here's how I do this. This light box is a slimline light box. See how skinny it is? My old one was a chunky metal box, which was rusted and everything else, so I wanted a slimline so bad. This is the rechargeable one. There is also a non-rechargeable. Both of them plug into a USB, but then this one can be disconnected and carry everywhere. The difference in price is about $15, and I went with the one that was rechargeable just because I want to be able to carry it throughout the house if I want. You know, say I'm sitting in front of the TV and I've got a bunch of stuff that I can trace onto watercolor paper. This is perfect for me. I don't want to be tied to a USB port. On this, there is a little switch here on the side. See that little button right there? They didn't tell you that in the instructions, but you go up, so towards the power there, head it up. to turn it on, and then you just press it and it turns on. And then as holding it, it goes brighter and brighter. And if you keep holding it, it can go down lower and lower. It's that easy. Isn't that great? I love that that is adjustable. So whenever I'm doing a page, I will put my type there, and then I will lay my paper over there. Now in the journal here, I'm able to do just that. Let me show you. I've got to make it a little brighter here. So because this is a slimline book, I can actually put it into my sketchbook, look at that, and go right and trace right through it. That is why I absolutely love this light box. But I'm going to show you how I go about tracing this, because like I said, I get a lot of inquiries about that. So I'm just going to use regular paper here, and I'm going to just always use a really sharp pencil because it helps you with the seeing what it is. Dull pencil is just going to make it harder. So what I do is I just lightly go right and follow the letter. I'm just doing the outline, taking my time. These are kind of wonky letters, which is one of the reasons that I picked them too. I didn't want to have to be worried about them being really exact. Kind of like them playful. See how easy that is? You could also stick tracing paper or graphite paper under here and do it that way. Hold it up to a window, you could also do that. So there's my word flicker. And see how good it looks? Then all I do is I do lines. So I'm filling in the letter with just lines like this. Just individual lines. And I try to keep them all in the same direction. I try to keep the same pressure. You can see that line's a little darker, so then I just darken everything up. Now when I was doing color pencil, I would do circles on everything. So I am avoiding circles. I am trying to do more lines and cross-hatching and things like that. So you can see how fast that fills in. And then what I do, see how fuzzy the edges kind of get? What I do now is I'll come back and strengthen that line on the outside. And that cleans up the letters really nice. So I would just come back with a sharp point. And it cleans it up nice. That is how I do my lettering. All of my lettering and all of my sketchbooks that you've ever seen are done this way unless I've done them freehand. But majority of mine, I like them to look consistent, so I want the same typeface, the same size, the same everything, because that's how I am. I want things to kind of look uniform. So now that I've got the bird picked, the American robin, I want to show you a little way of cheating to get you used to drawing birds, or really any animal. I start with a printout of whatever my bird compilation is, and I'm going to use tracing paper over it. And what I want you to notice is the simple shapes. So when you're looking at this robin here, what do you see? Do you see a circle for the head? Do you see an oval for the body? Do you see kind of a rectangle for his tail? His wing is almost a really tall, elongated triangle. That's what I want you looking for, simple shapes. And it is gonna look ridiculous when we pull off the paper, trust me on this. With tracing paper on top, I want you to not hold your pencil like this, because look at the motion. I don't have a lot of motion. Like if I was to draw the breast, see how my hand has to contort? So you want to hold it loose, at least halfway. And I want you to just instantly like kind of draw a circle before putting your hand down, and then draw it. Okay, and then here I'm going to practice the shape, and I actually do ovals better from the side. So I'm going to practice. Not so hard, right? And then I've got the tail here, which is a rectangle, or it can be a really long oval. I'm going to do a long oval. And then I've got the little wing here. And then I just draw the beak. I like to include the size of the eye if you can. It just relates the size of the eye to the circle of the head. And then you can do the legs if you want here. Are you ready to see how crazy this looks? This is the bird. Yes, you are now a first grader. I know, I'm so proud of myself. But what we do from here now is we start to define, because you know these are the shapes that we just traced over this bird. So this is the proportions, it's the scale, it's the everything. And by seeing it in simple shapes like this, it gives you the confidence to move forward, right? You're like, I've got this. If this is what we're starting with, and we're gonna end up with a robin, we can do this. The next thing you have to do is relatable, is relate things. I like to add horizontals, or verticals and horizontal lines if I can. If you take this beak part here, and if you run a straight line down, you can see that his chest almost touches that line. Let's just draw a straight line there. I'm going to draw from the bottom of the beak across the head. It's about halfway. So the bottom of the beak across the head. And then I'm just going to cut the head in half. So this is my shape, and I'm going to go in half. The reason I'm doing that is I want to see where the eye is. Do you see that it's almost exactly in the half point? And then I want to look at the body, and I want to cut it in half. So here's the body here to here. I would say this is about half. And then I want to cut the body in half this way and this way. So I would say this is about half. But instead of that, we could go from the head down and then cut the body in half. What this is telling you now is when you go to recreate this in your journal, is it gives you lines to see, oh, the tail lines up with the halfway of the body. See that? So the tail intersects that line. This way, you can see that the wing doesn't quite touch the back of the robin's head. But if you go halfway, it's between those two lines. So this is about figuring out the position for yourself for whenever you go to redraw this. And from this, what you're going to do is now start defining. We're going to look at the shape of the bird here. Look at back. Let's look at the head to the body. Is this a soft shape? Is it a harsh shape? Does it go in? Does it go out? It's pretty smooth here. I'm going to go here and here. And with this black wing now, I'm going to go darker so you can really see the defining lines. Okay, now I'm going to look from the back here. It goes down and follows the wing. So it goes down. I'm looking at, there's a little bit of the back showing right there. So that's by the tail. Okay, I'm going to go dark there. And then from here, remember the halfway mark is about where that is. So my halfway mark is right here. See how we're defining now? And I want to get that tail. From the back, it kind of goes upward. Down here, if you follow his rump, it kind of goes up softly. So let's do this angle first. So it kind of goes from here to here. Okay, and it starts about right there. So the rump we know has to come smooth from there. So we've got it coming up. You can just draw the circle there. And now let's look at the breast. Remember, we drew our line down from the beak, and it was just a little shy. Where the head and the breast now, I'm looking at that line right there where the black and the orange kind of connect. And it is a sharp line. It's not smooth like this, but yet it doesn't go in or indent or anything. What I'm gonna do is pull this out and then pull this out. And I'm watching the curve here. Sometimes when you're doing a curve or like an angle of the foot, if you just sit here and follow it a couple times just with your pencil. See how I mimic the line? It's because I'm kind of training my hand to see that. And then we know these two connect. And now I've got to look at where the tip of the neck here, so where his neck and head connects. So if we drew a straight line, that's pretty much where it is. So my head needs to come a little further up. And there's our basic robin shape. Of course, he's got all these wonderful details, and we will explore them next. What I'm gonna do now is take my tracing paper of the bird that we just did, and I'm gonna put it on this regular paper. I'm gonna draw really light. I'm gonna use the 2B pencil. That's my lightest pencil. And I'm just gonna transfer those lines. So just taking my time. Now I'm just looking at the dark lines. Remember the dark ones that we did here? Gonna make sure I've got it all, yep. And there's our bird. In my sketchbook, I've already created my robin in pencil because it does take a while to do something like this. So I probably worked on this robin for about 40 minutes to get the darkness, to get the values, to get everything that I liked. But I'm gonna show you how I do this. And I start by working up into the pencils. I have a 2B, an 8B, and a 12B. I'm going to press really hard and then let it kind of fade out. See that I'm getting lighter with each touch, each stroke there? This is the 8B. And I've got a soft mat under me as well, so it's not going to come out really, really dark, but it'll be dark enough. You'll be able to see the values. This is the 12B. And I want to show you the black wing. Okay, so there are the pencils, and you can see the darkness and the values, right? What I want to show you now is look at the shine. Do you see the shine of the black wing? And do you see the non-shine of those pencils? That is the matte graphite. And that's why I love these pencils. They smear a little, you can see, but not a lot. Where like this one smears a lot, see that? Inside my sketchbook, I really don't even have to have a divider inside, like a separator, but I put one in there because I've got watercolor on one side and pencil, and I didn't want them rubbing on each other. But that's another reason why I like these Faber-Castell matte pencils, because they do not smear. There's a couple techniques for when you're using cross-hatching, and I'm gonna just show you with the black wing because it's naturally darker. When you are, let's say this is your head shape here, I like to just kind of go softly, so start at the edge. A light pressure is best because we are going to get up to the darkness. Don't worry about all the spacing or anything like that. But now I'm going to cross. So cross hatching, it means you cross. So this one went this way. Now I'm going to go this way with my strokes. And then I like to turn it one more time. So let's see, we went this way first. We just went this way. And now I'm going to turn it again so that we go this way. So now I'm going against the grain this way. You see how the more levels you put, the darker it gets. And that's because I'm pulling the lines, but yet I'm cross hatching and they're a little darker here, and you can just keep adding. Every time, if you want the shade to be darker, instead of doing full lengths again, let's do shorter ones. So let's try to go about halfway, and I'm going in the same direction we went the first time. Just gonna do half of it so you can see. And now I'm gonna go this way again. And then I'm gonna go this way. Nope, that way. So you see how you're getting even darker, and that's the beauty of cross hatching. And this is why I'm allowing myself to play with cross hatching, and this is why it takes so long, because it is layer upon layer. And then once I'm done with 2B, I go into the 8B and do the same thing, and then I do 12B over it. Sometimes though, depending on how dark the bird is, like this robin has a very dark head, you can see really black. I really didn't even use my 2B on there. I'm going to show you how to do, like, his breast gets dark down here and goes lighter up here. So that's a great example to use the 2B. You can see it's really light value. It goes to medium here, light again, medium, and then to dark. So I've got the 2B here, and I'm just going to start going down this way. So I've got a little bit of black here for his neck and his chest. It goes here. I'm marking out the wings now so that I don't have to do color there. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is just kind of pull down really light. You can do smaller lines if you want. You can do smaller like this and stack them on top. It doesn't matter. I know it's going to be really dark down here. And then I'm going to cross. So now I'm going to go this way. I hope this isn't too blurry for you. So now I'm going to cross this way. So our first direction was this way. And now our second direction is this way. I'm going to look at my picture now, and I'm going to ask myself, is that value similar? I'm going to go one more layer, and this layer is going to be that way. Now I'm going to move into my 8B. In the 8B, what I'm going to concentrate are the next layers of darkness. So I've got a little bit here, and let's work on those. So again, I'm going to start with the straight line, and I'm going soft. I don't want any hard lines. Okay. Now I'm going the opposite way. And then I'm going to go this way. And you can see it's just giving me enough shadow up there. And now I'm going to, it's got a little bit down here at the edge. So again, I'm going to start straight. And then I'm going to go across this way. I'm looking at where that starts. It starts about right here because I'm looking at the wing. So if I pull the wing, remember we did that half line of the body. So it's about halfway there. And then I'm going to do that way. And now, because this is such a dark area, I mean, look how dark that is. I'm going to actually do this way as well. So I'm turning my piece. I do them better this way. And I'm going to deepen this again. You can see that I've got light, medium, light, little darker here than I should be. So I'm going to come down and do it again. I could also switch to my 12 if I wanted. See how it established the values? That's the joy of cross-hatching. I really like that. Now, if you have an area that, say you get a little heavy here, you come back with the 2B. I always come back with the lighter pencil. So if I went to 12 here, then I would come back with the 8B. But because I did 2B before I did the 8 here, I want to just feather these edges a little bit more with the 2B. How it gets rid of the kind of the harsh line there. That is a harsh line. Here we've got a little bit of a dark area on this chest here. And there you go. So that is how I did this robin in this sketchbook. Slow, methodical, and getting the values that I achieved. And you can see that I got into 12B quite a lot. But what I want you to look at, there's hardly any reflectiveness of the graphite. And that's why I really enjoy these pencils. So now let's talk about adding a little bit of color here. I had stencils cut for me for my cultivated color class, and this is what I'm using to make my little grids up here. So all throughout the book that you see all the little squares, that's what I'm using. I have 3 for the gray feathers, 3 for the breast, and then I have 2 for the head and 1 for the beak. I just like to kind of break it down from what I see. So you can see here, right? You see all this pretty grays. See all the beautiful oranges here, his beak color, his eye color. I like to have all that done and in my book if I can put it there. I also try to come up with an interesting pattern for how I want my color to go on. By that, see that I wanted to explore the blue and the gray of the dark-eyed Junco. And I wanted it to not take up the whole bit because part of this journey for me is the drawing and allowing my drawing skills to improve, especially when drawing a realistic bird like this. So I'm going to take my time on my robin here and let's figure out what I want it to kind of look like. I drew this robin and I know that I kind of want it to go this way in a tiny sliver. That way I get the head, the feathers, and part of his red breast, which I really love. We're gonna do that. I'm using a Princeton Aqua Elite number 8 long round, and that is because of the point. I absolutely love this brush. I'm looking for a bluish gray. It's kind of a really neutral gray, so I'm gonna start with Davies gray. And I'm starting with Davies. This is in Danthrone. Do you see the brightness difference there? I definitely want this color instead of this one. So Davies gray, and I'm going to touch into sepia, which is my brown. And you can see, it gives me a beautiful gray. But I also want to try lavender and brown. Lavender is great for grays. It's probably my favorite gray. It's whenever I use shadows, I use lavender and brown. All right, let's go with that. And I want you to see the difference here. Do you see how soft this one is? And this is the one with Davies gray. So do you see how it's almost like a concrete gray, where this is more of a soft gray? So I'm gonna go with the softer gray. I really like that. A lot of people ask me too, what colors, why don't I write my colors down? I'm using this palette all year long. I tend to remember my palettes, and inside of this sketchbook too, I will do a little card like this to stick inside of my sketchbook so I remember what palette it was. But you could easily write it if that's what you need to do. I don't really care about that. I like to just color mix and fool around and see what I can do. But if you're a beginner, definitely it will help you by writing down your mixes. And then I need to look at, I kind of like this bluish gray here, and that's almost this one. I'm going to touch a little bit of the indanthrone in that. And a little more Davies now. I think that's good. So we've got two different blues there. And then I need to mix a black. And I know I like indanthrone and sepia. It makes such a luscious color. And really any dark will do this, like a dark green, a dark Payne's gray, indigo, anything with sepia or a dark brown will give you a gorgeous black. I'm going to start with my lightest gray, which was the lavender and the sepia. And I need more of that because I need to do quite a bit of his feathers. So I need a nice little puddle. Okay. First thing I'm going to do so I don't forget is fill in my square up here. I've got a lot of water, so I'm going to blot my brush because this is my lightest gray, so I want it to look lighter. Just water on my brush. I'm going to soften those lines. And then I'm going to pick up that next darkest color, which was the gray, the Davies gray, touch of indanthrone, and a little bit of sepia. I like the blue that this is adding. Ooh, that's pretty. He's got a little bit of blue down here as well, so I'm just gonna pull that down here. Just water. Before that dries, I'm gonna splash. Before this dries, I want to splash. Okay, I'm looking for the darkness here. Darkness on his head. He does have some white patches around his eyes, so I'm being careful about that. Okay, I can see that that's not dark enough, and I think it's a little too watery, so I'm going to use indanthrone again and sepia. That's better. It's a nice rich darkness. Just water now. I'm going to pull some of that color up. This is kind of where I'm letting it fade out. I forgot to do the little square up there, so I'm adding a little bit of, there we go. This was the lighter mix before I added more pigment. Just water on my brush. Let's smooth this out. Okay, I have a little bit running right here on his back, so I'm going to lift that up, force the water up that way. Remove a little bit of that. I will come back when that's dry and I will deepen that. So now let's go to the breast. So this picture is very yellow. This is more like what the breast is. So I'm going to use an orange. If you had a burnt sienna, that would be a really great color for that. I have quinacridone burnt orange here. And I'm going to add a little bit of Naples yellow to it. That looks pretty. Okay, I'm going to add orange out here by itself, and I'm going to touch a little bit of brown into this, just to dull it. Okay, got orange here again, and I think that's going to be my medium. I'm going to get all three of these colors on here first so that I don't forget. I used to have Quin burnt orange on my palette, and then I went to Quin Sienna for a while, but I really love the earthiness of this Quin burnt orange. It's one of my favorite oranges. Now let's go and see if the one with brown is a little deeper. I need a little bit more brown. Okay. So I'm going to add the light, the medium, and a little bit of dark down here. Got some just water puddles. I want to get that off of there. And while this is wet, I'm going to mix up that dark black again. So that was sepia and indanthrone. And I can tell I've got a lot of water on my brush. So what I'm going to do is, if you ever have a mix where you mixed it and you were hoping for something thicker, if you touch the belly of the brush right here, you know, where the thickness of the brush is, on paper towel, what happens is that pulls the moisture out and takes, see how much is coming out? And I think that's going to make it darker. Yes. And not watery. So it's just a little tip for you. That's lovely. Just water, softening the edges here. Splashing lightly. Okay, back to our chest here. Going into my darkest now. A little more brown in there. Just water now. He's got really a white area here, so I think I'm going to just take this to the area. Gonna add a little bit more orange in there. I like that a lot. I'm gonna just touch some orange by itself here. See if I can get a little more color here. Okay, his face is basically black and white. Remember, I deepened that. So I've got that color here. I'm watching this, so when I get ready to splash, it's a little too wet right now. If you splash when it's too wet, it doesn't give you the nice texture. It just makes puddles and makes the paint kind of sit there. A lot of you wonder why I splash. I splash for texture. That is the one thing that I love about watercolor, is the texture you get with just adding water. Simplicity. Because I don't use a white watercolor or white acrylics or anything like that, I'm going to paint the white here because this is my head. So the head has white and black on it, and that's it. So I use a Neocolor crayon and I just fill in the box with white. I could also just write white, but I like to see that little white square. Okay, the beak is bright yellow. So I'm going to do raw sienna and a little bit of Naples yellow. And his legs, it just depends on the picture, which is kind of interesting. Here he's kind of got flesh colored legs, but everywhere else they're kind of gray. So I'm just going to use one of the wing grays, which I like the darker gray. And I'm just going to do one since I've got kind of that leg put in there. His eye is also black. And that is how I do my page. Up here I wrote American Robin, and then I wrote Turdus migratorius, that's the Latin name, and I just wrote that in pencil. So do you see all my horizontal lines there on the robin? And then I have the graphite here in the area that I wanted to showcase. I love the robin's head with those little stripes there. And then there's my color palette. When this is dry, I will take my Posca pen and add a little highlight in his eye. But that's how I do my nature palette sketchbook. I hope this answered questions about my lettering. I hope you enjoyed that little light box. Wasn't it the best? I don't know how I lived without that super skinny thing. And then playing with my 18 color studio palette again to reinforce my mixing and what the palette will do for me. And then just taking advantage of filling out a little bit of the robin so that you can see the interesting colors. I am so intrigued by this process and hope you will come up with something for yourself to keep you going and inspired. And for me, it's just bringing a bit of nature into my studio. And I love when I can do that. If you were inspired by today's content, please like or comment. I would really appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed, please click the button. And thanks so much for watching.